On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very exclusive treat. He's not just a coach, he's a profound teacher and author who helps people embody their awakened masculine and feminine energies in both relationships and in life. Big facts. He's an internationally sought after authority figure in the field of relationships whose work extends beyond individual coaching to include star coaches and highly successful CEOs, just to name a few. Known for his grounded and practical approach, he brings spirituality and real world insights together in a unique blend that resonates with people across the globe, and his content will penetrate your soul. His teachings have transformed the lives of many, guiding them towards more fulfilling and harmonious relationships. And he's the author of the instant classic book, Understand Women Better, a testament to his deep understanding of relationship dynamics. His philosophy is simple yet profound. Theory is uninteresting to me. I am only interested in results and creating bold changes in the collective. He's a visionary, a mentor, and a game changer in the realm of relationship coaching, a fact that speaks volumes about his expertise. He's just a juggernaut in all facets of life and a terrific human being. Please welcome the insightful, transformative, and charismatic, the handsome and abundant Lorin Krenn. How you doing, Lorin?
I'm honored to be here. Thank you for that really powerful and empowering intro.
My pleasure. I always get a kick out of them. Look, it's your story. You wrote it. I just said it. I said it with some enthusiasm and so forth. But I'll be honest for the listeners. We connected before we hit record, and it was instant chemistry, instant alignment. I'm really excited for this one, and for our audience, about 6 million now. In case you were not familiar, my best suggestion is to do a deep dive and play catch up. Read his book, check out his content, listen to his podcast, check out all the unbelievable stuff he has going on. What I think is most valuable today is we just have an unbelievable conversation. Before we dive in, we're going to get a little weird. You ready for me?
Yes.
Okay. What is your superpower, Lorin?
It's a fantastic question. I believe my superpower is to understand human suffering to a degree where I can feel it, I can sense it, but I do not lose myself in it too much when I work with someone or identify with it too much. So I'm in this blend between really being able to relate and feel the other person, and at the same time guiding them to a deeper place, which is their truth. That is what I would call my superpower. It's that blend and that relationship between caring deeply, but at the same time having the bigger picture and not getting lost in being too caring and carrying then too much pain of others, which I believe is in coaching a really, really one of the most important skills. And not just in coaching, in any relationship at the end of the day.
You know what? This is very timely for me. And from being honest, like I do a lot of coaching now and high-level CEOs, executives, and people just trying to start a brand and so forth. And one of the things that I think is a flaw is I care so much in my clients because I'm very selective with who I work with and so forth. And I need to be better, but I am improving. I'm getting better at not carrying all their emotions as well, because I do deeply care. And as do you, and you know, that's rare these days. But it's a little bit, it's been challenging to care so much. And then when the call's over, kind of let it go.
Yes.
Well, I totally understand.
Yes, and also sometimes when you're working with someone, you're not just working on something, you're working with all of who they are. And of course, every person has a deep soul and something so profound, which connects us all. But also every person comes with conditioning and comes with wounding, and there can be a sense of heaviness. And for us, it's that work of working with them while not letting that heaviness that can come up in these moments drain our energy.
This is unbelievable. And I was checking out some of your content, which I highly suggest everybody to immediately follow this episode. And you were talking something along the lines of, as a soul, we're all maybe the same and connected, but the human experience, we're a little different, conditioned, flawed, and stuff like that. You obviously said it a lot more beautifully, but you know what I'm referring to?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that especially when it comes to personal development or spirituality, there can be this one of the traps that people might fall into is that yes, we are all souls, and yes, perhaps everyone has genuinity and purity somewhere, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to protect yourself. That doesn't mean that you have to be highly discerning with who you let into your energy or who you let into your closest circle. So actually, this is something really interesting. Just sharing from what's coming up in that moment is, in my spiritual journey, I actually became much more selective, and I became much more, because before I would lose myself in this openness, compassion, and love and light. But that is not the answer. The answer is to really be able to discern, because when we are able to discern, then at the end of the day, we surround ourselves with the right people. And that's where everything starts to change, because I believe that we are the product of our relationships. We are the expression of all our relationships, and specifically, of course, the ones most closest to us.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And since I reinvented myself, it wasn't only a career, it was like an identity. And basically, I feel like I've had two lives. But over the last couple of years, I've been so selective and intentional with who I keep in my inner circle and around. And the truth of the matter is I've trimmed a lot of the people that were in my circle and so forth. And it doesn't mean that I'm right or they're wrong. I'm just going a different direction, and I don't have as much in common with people from my past per se. I want to be around people like you, like this stuff I can't get enough of. And also, you have to protect your energy for the life of you,
100%.
right? Like, if you keep going back to a certain relationship or situation, and you find yourself coming out of that encounter with a lowered frequency, or you feel some type of way, look, give yourself a little grace. You're human, but also acknowledge the way you feel and then make some decisions. You don't have to keep going back to that relationship, right?
Yes, 100%. And I think I love the word fierce, fiercely loving. That is a word I love. Because at the end of the day, we're doing this in the name of love. It's for the greater good of all, right? Because we cannot serve when we keep staying in relationships. I mean, I would even go as far as, there is nothing as detrimental to our mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health than staying in relationships that do not serve us,
I've been
right?
there.
Yes. I've
Yeah,
been there as well.
yeah. I think we all have to some extent. Yeah. And
And
also,
potentially we have to go through it as well in order to learn and really sometimes hit rock bottom and really start to understand, okay, it's time to, like you mentioned before, reinvent yourself. It's a
yeah.
great opportunity to reinvent yourself.
Yeah. And one thing I didn't fill you in on is, before I reinvented myself, when I was in that dark place, a few things happened at once. Number one, I was out of alignment with what I did for a living. Even though I was making money, I knew I was here for something more impactful. And also, my dad, my best friend, had gotten diagnosed with cancer. He's still battling. But also, I just
Wow.
a toxic relationship. Yeah. And the toxic relationship, look, I will not point any fingers, because I definitely was not my best self either at that point. But in a relationship, like, you feel like, I'm trying to make this work, I'm trying to change this person, something doesn't feel right. I think for everybody listening right now, you should pay attention to that. You should never settle. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean that relationships don't take work, right? And you should absolutely communicate, and there'll be ebbs and flows and so forth. But if something feels off, you're better to be by yourself and figure things out and work on yourself, than to try to force something which most likely is not going to have a happy ending. Would you agree?
Yes, and also usually what's happening here is, when we are playing out this pattern in relationships where we're suffering, we're operating from a place of unworthiness.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, usually what happens, doesn't matter which kind of trauma has occurred or which kind of wounding has occurred, whether what I was in childhood or later on, when we notice ourselves, specifically when there's a specific pattern playing out where our needs are not being met, we feel like we cannot share our truth. We feel like when we share our truth, we're being rejected, we're being abandoned, the other person is emotionally unavailable. There are certain things happening, or we are walking on eggshells, right? We are suddenly afraid. We're no longer able to really live from an authentic place, and we no longer feel safe and feel trusting in that place. Um, it is in these moments, it is in these moments where we kind of start to, when we stay stuck in these things, then eventually we start to lose our power, we start to lose our energy. And I always like to say also, it's draining for your soul. You can see that in someone who is in a toxic relationship. You can see it by the look in their eyes. You can see what's happening to them. It's almost like a part of their soul is being overshadowed. It's almost like they're losing themselves in it, because it's such an intense experience for us. Because that is I would even say it is the thing that has the biggest impact on you. And it's really so important to see through that and to take action as quickly as possible.
You just said something so beautiful and profound. It was kind of like a breakthrough for me. It makes me realize when you meet somebody or you're with somebody that you know, and you know that they're going through something, they might not even have told you. For all you know, you see their Instagram, everything looks great. You can see in their eyes and their energy if their soul is being drained. That could be because of a home relationship or a job, whatever the case may be. But it's so obvious as opposed to when your soul is lit up, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is circling back to what I was sharing before about protecting ourselves. We cannot be in a healthy relationship if it's at the denial of our truth, denial of our heart's safety, right? We cannot. We can only be, some people misunderstand the word protecting. You have to be able to protect your truth in order to be in a conscious and healthy relationship. Because I believe at the end of the day that a relationship is not here to make you happy. A relationship is for and foremost here to make you evolve. And evolving means stepping more into our power, stepping more into our truth, right? That there is no misalignment between who we really are and how we're living in the world, right? So, a relationship at the end of the day is meant to make us become more of who we truly are. And when you can sense that you are becoming someone who you don't want to be in a relationship, then that relationship is not serving you. Does that mean you have to break up? No. Does that mean you have to have the tough conversation? Absolutely,
Yes.
yes. And this is where fierceness comes in, because we want to be fiercely loving people, which means if we have to, we leave with integrity, right? With the most grace possible. But we don't we don't serve anyone by staying in situations where we are not meant to stay.
Not the person, and certainly not us.
Yes, absolutely.
Fiercely loving. So you said?
Yes, fiercely loving.
That's unbelievable.
And it's also in relationship with my wife, we practice this. So what we do is when there is tension, which is not often the case, but when there is tension, every relationship, no matter how awakened and conscious you are, you've got two cultures clashing. You've got two minds, two different upbringings. They will clash. I believe this clash is for you both to evolve, for you both to step out of your limitations and kind of expand your consciousness and expand the love inside your heart, right? But whenever there is tension, we immediately share fiercely, but fiercely loving from our heart. So we're always willing to risk a moment of adding tension to it in order to work through it as quickly as possible and move back into total connection and alignment, because then it's not simmering, then it's not like kind of boiling in the background, because resentment later will always come out. And
Always.
when it comes out, it will ruin everything.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you said when there's a little bit of tension, not if, because spoiler alert, and also, I agree with you. And this is really deep stuff. I've been learning a lot, taking a Kabbalah course right now, and I love it. And they were talking about a soulmate is actually supposed to push your buttons a little bit so that you can
Yes.
level up. And my teacher was saying something along the lines. I thought this was so cool, but it kind of reminds me of what you just said. For those relationships that like never argue or never have any tension or anything like that, that's a body mate. That's not really a soulmate. There's supposed to be moments of friction and tension,
Yes.
because that with no friction, there could be no light. That should help you grow even stronger, as opposed to if there was no friction at all.
Yes, I completely agree. And this might be interesting to the listeners to hear, because I even go as far as saying that unless you are really profoundly working on yourself, every relationship will eventually make you unhappy. Because something that happens in every relationship, is in our intimate relationships, is that our core wounds are being exposed. This is what usually happens after the honeymoon phase. So you go through that kind of phase of exciting, the thrill, it's adventurous, and everything is new. You experience the sense of novelty. And then comes the point, boom, something starts to change. Suddenly there is tension. Suddenly you see parts about them that you might not like. Parts of you come alive. You shut down, you disconnect. You say you want to be in a deep union, you want to be in a deep relationship, but at the same time, time you're doing things that are not in congruence with what you actually want to create. And that is that pivotal moment where you can be the 1% who goes to the deepest depths and truly reflects and truly chooses to open their heart in these moments, because that's what being a spiritual warrior or warrioress means. That's what really spirituality and personal development means, because we can all talk about spirituality and personal development. We can all talk about it. But in relationships, it's where it becomes action. It's where it becomes embodied. So it doesn't matter how much we know about spirituality and personal development. If we can't apply it in a highly triggered moment in a relationship, then it doesn't mean we're bad, but it means we still have work to do. And it's within these moments where we can become the 1%, and I believe it's only 1%, who say, you know what? There's all these triggers and all this wounding, but we are going to go beyond that, work through that, transcend that, whatever word you want to use. And then you enter a state actually deeper than the honeymoon phase. We can call it sacred love. We can call it divine love. These are just words, but you actually go even deeper. So when someone says the novelty in the honeymoon phase was beautiful, if you choose to do the true work and you really lean in and devote yourself fully to the right person, of course, a disclaimer, right person, it has to be the right person, then you can actually go to a place much, much deeper and much, much vaster.
I think that's so beautiful. Most people think like, oh, the honeymoon phase is over. It'll never reach that peak again, where it's exciting and adventurous and all that stuff. But you're here to show and demonstrate where that's almost just the tip of the iceberg. There's a much deeper place and love in it. And I think that's good for everybody to know, because, and look, I'm engaged. I've been with my fiance for less than 3 years. But I understand now, like there's a law of diminishing returns. And what that means is the person could do nothing wrong. It's just not, it's like, let's just say you love a cheeseburger, right? You have your favorite cheeseburger in the world. First night, it's unbelievable. Have it again the second night, still great. The third night, the cheeseburger didn't change. You've seen it before.
Yes.
So with a relationship, it's no one's fault. It's just things become a little bit less new, right?
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that that's negative.
Yes, and this is where people cheat, unfortunately, where they start what I call, it's not just cheating. Cheating we can call in physical betrayal and sleeping with someone else. But what happens for and foremost is emotional cheating, emotional leaking in sexual energy, what I call it, or leaking in energy in general, right? The other person might call their ex back, or they might go to that party and they might start connecting with someone. And the truth is, as hard as this is to hear for people, you always know what you're doing. You always know what you're doing. I do this work day in and day out. I work with so many people. I often receive like kind of stories, yeah, but nothing happened. And I go deep with a client, right? And they start to realize, well, actually a lot happened here, right? A lot has been happening. And it's just so important, because what you said is so profound. Yes, the newness will go away. That's no one's fault. But at the end of the day, it's about that the deep trust and deep safety, where you feel you can be truly authentically you in a relationship, is the most profound experience. So when people are chasers, right, always chasing, jumping from one relationship to the next, whether that's a man or a woman, doesn't matter. What they don't know yet is the embodied experience of what it means to be in a highly committed relationship, where you experience this profound trust and safety. You know the other person is all in. You know you are all in. You know you can fully trust them, even with your life, right? And to go home to something like this every single day, that's a sanctuary. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful men I have worked with, I have seen, are those who have an incredible woman by their side, right? Talking about men now specifically, but it's the same for me. My marriage with my wife has inspired me to show up in the world, not just 10 times more, but infinitely more. Through our relationship, I gain this fuel, and I call it divine inspiration, to really, really step up and show up as my most authentic self.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I totally agree. And I imagine there's some listeners right now that are hearing this, that, whoa, that sounds unbelievable. How do they create the most divine union humanly possible?
Yes, fantastic question. Of course, people will ask themselves that. At the end of the day, it starts with one decision. It's not like there is this one practice or this one thing and then it's all sorted. It's work for the rest of your life. But at the end of the day, it's that one decision. And that decision is that ultimately your desire for freedom, your desire for whatever you want to call it, true joy, true happiness, needs to be your strongest desire. Whenever I work with someone, whenever I listen to someone's story of why they're stuck or anything, often what is always a common denominator why they're still stuck is because they have other desires which are still equivalently very strong in comparison. What we need to get to a place of where we internally decide and choose, my biggest desire or hunger is freedom, is growth, right? Is awakening, is expansion, whatever we want to call it. It doesn't matter. These are just words and labels. And when we come to that place, then I believe everything becomes possible, because you can give someone the 10 most powerful cutting edge practices to work with wounding, to work with trauma, somatic healing therapy and practices. But if their desire is not there and meeting that practice, the practice in itself has the 50%, but the other 50% is your desire, your intention. I would even go as far as saying 90% is your intention and your desire. But now, if you have the desire, you find a way. It's the same in business. Everyone who is in business knows that if you bring that level of intention and commitment, you will find a way, because there always is a way, because suddenly the tools and suddenly the practices, they work because you make them work, because your energy has shifted. You show up from a total different energetic place.
I think that's the most beautiful thing
So
ever.
I don't know, I just was kind of, but to clarify things based on your question. So it's that kind of internal decision. Once you have made that decision, then you need to surround yourself with the best knowledge, and you need to go deep into it. And this doesn't just mean reading podcasts, so like listening to Craig's podcast, which is extremely powerful, but it means going deeper, doing also the deeper work, whether that's meditation, whether that's spiritual practice, whether that's, I don't know, working with Craig in a more intimate setting, in a speaking event, or working with me, whatever it is, but where you really get to do the deep work, right? And when you then start to do that, then you will notice that the practices and tools suddenly start to work. Your energy starts to shift, right? And the second thing I will say here, and that is perhaps even more important, and that, or equally as important, make your relationship your spiritual practice or your personal development practice. So you can see almost your relationship as the training ground. What you read in the book, what you hear in the podcast, you apply in your relationship from, of course, from a conscious and authentic place. Because in your relationship, every single day, you will have moments of opportunity for growth. Moments, for instance, where your partner might be going through something. That's an opportunity for you to show up for them, to hold space for them, to be fully present with them, right? Or there might be a moment of tension. That's an opportunity for you to speak your truth, not to blame, project, but to speak your truth. Perhaps set a boundary, move back into alignment in that relationship, right? And if you treat your relationship as a spiritual training ground or personal development training ground, you start to learn more about yourself in one day than what you will learn in 30 years on the meditation cushion. And that's not to say that meditation is not extremely powerful, but you can only go so far on your own. And I believe you can go all the way through the mirror of a relationship, because a relationship is always mirroring you. Where are you out of integrity? Where are you not present? Where are you not grounded? Where you're not speaking your truth? Where you are showing up half-heartedly? Right? And if you do these two things, then you will just go deeper and deeper and deeper. And that momentum we can call positive momentum.
This is unbelievable. I mean, what you just said about 2 minutes ago, I think is the greatest cheat code for life. And that is the energy part and the desire. Right. And so many times people come to me like, I'm putting out content, but nobody's paying attention. But they don't really want it that bad. And they're not energetically behind it. And they're not really showing up authentically. Right.
Yes.
And that stuff, I mean, people always want, like, Craig, how did you build up your brand so fast in 3 years? Give me the strategies. But what they don't understand is you have to be available, right? And that energy and the desire has to be so strong that when you're in that frequency, number one, you'll probably end up getting the divine inspiration anyway of what to do next, or
Yes.
you'll take the right inspired action with the right energy behind it, and it'll lead to everything else. But the desire, the commitment, and the energy, I would agree, is probably about 90%.
Yes, 100%. And it's really that everywhere. It's in your relationship, it's in business, it's anywhere, it's in what you created, what I've created. And it's really mastering our energy is really where the game is at, because it's the toughest bit. I love going to the gym. I believe eating healthy. I'm a biohacker, whatever that on earth means, that word, right? It's just a label. It
Yeah.
sounds fancy. But what it means is basically using cutting edge research modalities, therapies, healing modalities, such as cold therapy, for instance, cryotherapy, using all these things to really you be able to use our highest intelligence. We can call it spiritual intelligence, our body's intelligence, right? But I say it's easy to go to the gym consistently. Still, I know it's hard. Not for everyone, it's easy. But in comparison, to go deeper and deeper in a relationship, not to get stuck, playing out certain wounded dynamics where you're suffering or where your heart is closed or anything, or the same argument over and over. Nothing is as hard as really continuously showing up in the full, as your most authentic or as your fullest self in a relationship, right? So, and even though all the other things are highly important and we need to do them as well, we need to do all of them, the energetic mastery is really the most important thing. And when you can master yourself, I don't like the word mastery actually, or being a master, because I believe as long as we live and breathe, we're not masters. We still have something to learn. But as much mastery as you can master in your current state of consciousness and state in life. And when you can, when the energetics, when that is there, then everything will follow, just everything. And I believe then you can do it everywhere, right? Whether it's eating healthy, whether that's staying consistent with your business and all of that.
I agree. Do you think desire is something that you can teach, or somebody has to be pulled to something to really lean in energetic
Yes.
desire?
This will shock people who will listen right now. Usually you have to suffer a lot to get an equivalent strong desire to free yourself and heal your suffering. Why? Because, for instance, just to share quickly, you mentioned that your father, I believe you mentioned, is suffering from cancer. My father died early in my life because of cancer, because of colon cancer. Was 11 years old when he was diagnosed. When I was 14, he died in my arms, right? So I really feel you around kind of that experience. I know firsthand how that experience feels, how that is. And that suffering really pushed me towards my edge, because it really just created so much pain and so much suffering in my life. I didn't have a healthy masculine role model. I had no teachers. I had no mentors. But what it did, it's a blessing at the end of the day, a blessing in disguise, because when I look back now, it created an insatiable hunger to heal and free myself. And then, of course, the way was created. Because what did I do? I started to read hundreds of books. I started to do hours and hours every day of breath work, of meditation, going deep, doing a death meditation, like thinking and reflecting about death. And of course, that changed completely how and what I chose to put my focus on. Basically, in short, the answer is no, you cannot teach desire. Desire rises when the suffering and pain and stuckness has reached a level where the person goes inside, something needs to change. And that's when they come to you. That's when they come to me. Because usually they don't come to you or me when that point hasn't been reached. Or the other way, and this is just the 1%, these are the people who are on a high level and they say, I want to go even higher. But that's the 1%. The 99% is in suffering, needs to change something. The 1%, elite, whatever you want to call them, are these people who say, you know what? I'm at 99, but I want to go to 100%. So I'm going to do this thing now.
Yeah, this is so relatable, brother, because I sent out our weekly email newsletter this week, and the subject was "Pain is the portal." I
Yes.
believe pain is the portal to expansion. And I reinvented myself. A lot of things happened, obviously, at once. I took advantage of the lockdown to get quiet and reassess. Um, but I had been suffering in silence for so long. And just to be clear, like, I wasn't shot in war, like my arm wasn't bitten off by a shark, but my pain was my pain. Everybody's going through
Yes.
something emotionally and spiritually. And out of alignment is pretty, it's tough pain. And so I agree with you. I think that, but it's also interesting that you said that 1% that's really just looking for that next level of expansion. And
Yes.
like for me, things are going really well across the board. I say very humbly, I'm in alignment. I love my career, making money, my fiance, the dog, the marathons. But now I'm taking a Kabbalah class because I want to go even deeper, and I want
Yes.
to get to that next level expansion, and I love it. It's just,
Yes.
I think that was really interesting what you said. It's relatable. Both aspects are relatable. The
Yeah,
rock
and I
bottom,
think
yeah,
absolutely. And I think that is what changes everything, because you're saying right now that you're in a place where things are going really, really well.
right now.
But yes, but you want to go even deeper,
Mhm.
right? So it's coming, first of all, it's coming from that deeper place. That is
Mhm.
something that can never be taken from you, right? That is something, that deep hunger that is within you, that is within me. And not just that, if we now go even deeper, and this might not be easy to hear for people, but even when you have the most amazing wife by your side, you've got the amazing career, you have all the abundance, you still need to go deeper, because at the end of the day, death is coming. And now some people see this pessimistically, like, oh, but you shouldn't think about that and all of that. But if you look in Stoicism, if you look in any really ancient spiritual traditions, what so many, even though many didn't communicate with one another, but what so many share is this kind of idea of confronting death. So basically dying before you die. So at the end of the day, it's like this sense of, okay, I've got all these things, but I can still go deeper. And I think that is when everything starts to change, because then you're no longer dependent on having the most amazing wife, having the most amazing career. Then you reach an even deeper state where your dependency is on an internal source within you. And that is when, of course, paradoxically, you will gain even more abundance in your life, but at the same time, you're not getting attached to it. Because when I work with high achievers, some of them have become slaves of the beauty they have built, unfortunately. And they become slaves of their business. They become slaves of their relationship because they become highly attached and highly dependent. But we need to go even deeper. And this is very deep right now, but if someone gets to that
It's the
level,
best.
wow, that's
This
where the change happens.
this is the best stuff, if I'm being honest. These are my favorite conversations right now, straight up. And I
Mine
could
as
tell.
well.
I could tell. And we should all know that, like, you know, the physical things along the way, whether there's certain milestones in the business or a relationship or this, that, or the other thing, those are good. And we shouldn't feel guilty about that. But those milestones can never bring us lasting fulfillment, right? It's through
Yes.
our spiritual work where we can really connect to the infinite abundance and so forth, no matter what anybody believes in, right? Connecting to that and working on that relationship, in my opinion, is the only thing that can bring lasting fulfillment. And also, same here, like I've coached people that are making a ton of money and they feel a little empty. And that was me a couple
Yes.
years back, right? And again, I want to reiterate, don't you should absolutely enjoy the things, but they're just temporary. They're happiness,
Yes.
right? They're not fulfilling per se. And so for anyone
Yes.
listening today, I never like to like throw, spirituality at someone. I never like when people do that to me with religion. But I would just say this: if you're listening to this conversation and you're very intrigued and you're not that spiritual, lean in and form your own opinion.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I fully agree. And I believe this is the kind of biggest paradox that is happening in today's world. You're being sold by this conditioning, this kind of dream that you get the things and you get the relationship and you get all these things, and then you're going to be happy, right? So people are in that kind of hamster wheel, running, 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 and trying and trying and trying. And then what happens if you work with athletes, if you work with highly successful people, they get the thing and suddenly, boom, some of them might get depressed. This literally happens because for many years they've been grinding, they've been hustling. And amazing, they got to this place, but then everything starts to collapse because their whole meaning was built around this one thing. So what is the answer? Is it to have no goals? Absolutely not. Is it to have to say, no? No, it's exactly like Greg said. You need to enjoy the things. There is beauty in it. Enjoy all that comes with it, but don't expect lasting peace. Find the lasting peace somewhere else, and that is within yourself, because then you can truly enjoy the things, right? And if you do it in that way, you won't get burned out. Because I believe, and this might be a hard take, and I do understand some people really do work incredible hours and you need rest for your body. But I believe the word burnout is actually more energetic than it is about what exactly you're doing. Because I'm sure you will agree with me, you face stress in your life. You have stressful moments. Stressful moments happen in your business.
Mhm.
But if you fucking love what you do, which you clearly do, that stress is positive. You love it. You're like, come on, give me more of that.
Yes.
Interestingly, they've done research around that. When you perceive stress as positive, you don't have the same reaction in your body as when you perceive it as negative, meaning your health and immune system is more protected when you perceive the stress as positive. It's just,
This is so good. And I know exactly what you mean, because when I used to work long days on Wall Street, I would come home at night and I was depleted, right?
yes,
My and I always worked hard. That's just something I take pride in, but I was a gladiator in the wrong arena. And I would think to myself, Jesus, I gotta do this again tomorrow. And then tomorrow would be a mental like workout just to get up and go at it. But nowadays, like we're still kind of in the beginning. It's been 3 years and we've had a lot of success and so forth. And we're hiring and we're delegating. But if I'm being honest, I'm wearing more hats than I'd like to admit right now. I'm still working a lot and I'm delegating. I'm getting better. But the difference now is after a long day, I'm tired because it was an awesome jam-packed long day. I'm not depleted. I can't wait to wake up and do it again. Big difference.
yes, exactly. And of course, the body gets tired. I mean, you and I, when we
Yes.
have worked long, we're going to feel tired. It's natural. We have this body. We can be spiritually very powerful, but we still have a body that we need to take care of.
Yeah.
But the difference is exactly, we feel full. We might feel tired, but we feel full. And that just changes everything, because in the evenings when I'm eating dinner with my wife and we're talking about our day, we're talking about whatever in that moment comes through us, or having deep, heartfelt conversations, or just laughing and having fun in all experiencing the joy and grace of life, right? It's totally different than when you're grinding yourself to death, because again, the energy is different behind it.
Yeah, 100%. I love, you know what? This is the best conversations. Like I had a bunch of things I wanted to ask you because I wanted to hit them with the audience.
Yes, please.
This conversation is just like it's all over the map and it's so natural and off the cuff. To be honest with you, these are the best. Like
Yes.
we're connecting right now. Well, at least I am. I hope you are too. So deeply and so in alignment. I'm like high. It's like a dopamine
Yes,
stuff. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
It doesn't feel like work.
No, that's right. I wanted to ask you this one. I was checking
Yes.
out a piece of your content and I saw you write this and I thought it was beautiful. And I think I know what you mean, but I think this would be good for the audience. And that is that the universe doesn't judge you, you judge yourself.
Yes. Yes. So I think that a lot of people, through conditioning, whether it's through religion or any other conditioning from any background or tradition, is that you are a victim of something external, right? You are a victim of something. So, for instance, I will hear some people say, there are these deeper limiting beliefs that people have, that they're being punished by life, they're being punished by the universe, they are unworthy because, or whatever reasons, right? But I believe it's actually the other way around. I believe we punish ourselves, because when we say, oh, my life is going so bad and this is going so bad and that, it's almost like you're outsourcing responsibility to something outside. What is that life? What are we even talking about? We need to reflect about that, because it's not, this is an interesting one. It's not that there is no love in each moment. It is that we disconnect and do no longer see the love in each moment. Because I give you an example. You wake up in the morning, you open the news, you hear about horrendous things happening in the world. Now, of course, that is going to impact how you are going to see the day. right? And if that's how you wake up, you have no practice, you have no structure, you don't take care of your mind and what you feed your mind spiritually and or mentally, just then you will look at the world in a different way. You will see it through a different lens. So it's really, at the end of the day, it's no one is punishing us, no one is doing something bad to us. It is us who punish ourselves. Because why? Because we feel unworthy. Because we feel unworthy. Because the moment you feel worthy, you will no longer have that experience, right? And you will start to completely shift your reality, in the sense that, for instance, you can place one person in a room where there's literally, I've got a friend who is right now going through some very challenging times, but he's recovering health-wise. And he literally told me he was in the room in that hospital, going through something, getting infusions. I don't know exactly what it was. And there are so many people around him. And these people were complaining. They were in deep pain, all of them. And they were in such a negative energy. And he was deeply present. He was deeply connected to his heart. He was a bundle of joy. He was a beacon of light in that moment, right? And once more, he was not outsourcing to anyone or saying life is destroying me, or I'm not good enough or anything like that. No, his energy is totally different, the way he was showing up. So also his experience, of course, changed. And that's really it. Nothing is out there to get you. No one is out there to hurt you. No, you're not a victim of something. No, it's because you feel unworthy. And that is why you believe in these false narratives that we unconsciously create. The universe is punishing me. No, you're punishing yourself. The universe is disconnecting from me. God is disconnecting from me. No, you are disconnecting from it with your actions and with your attitude. And the moment you realize that, you can shift it, you take action or whatever is required in that moment. And then, of course, your whole reality starts to change.
Yeah. And I love, sometimes it's harsh, but I think it's very true, is you're not a victim. For anyone
Yes.
listening, even if you're going through it right now, you can literally make huge shifts in an instant the moment you change your
Yes.
vibration and so forth, right?
Yes.
You're not a victim.
Yes. And also, you are, at the end of the day, it's always you. You are standing in the way of yourself. You
Yeah.
are judging yourself. You are um, giving something meaning. The meaning it actually doesn't. It doesn't necessarily have to have over you. And exactly as Craig said, there are some really challenging spots in our lives. There are people go through really challenging experiences. So we have to also differentiate what is a real challenge and what is some kind of mental acrobatics we're doing because of limiting beliefs, right?
Yeah.
And it's not easy when we go through some real challenges, but it's nothing is gained by going into a kind of victim consciousness,
Yes.
because
Nothing.
yeah, nothing.
And also, I've adopted that mentality and really bought in over the last couple of years. And now it's when I have setbacks or obstacles or unpredictable challenges, which are inevitable for anyone playing life, playing a big game, or living life, I should say, the mentality that it's happening for me, not to me, and I don't know how yet, but I know that somehow this is going to propel and protect and promote me to something greater, and I can't wait to find out what that is. That makes it less challenging in the moment when you're going through it, as opposed to the old Craig. When something happened, I would have a pity party and I feel sorry for myself. And again, we understand, life can throw some big curveballs at you. Give yourself a little grace, take a moment, but then just maintain that mentality. This is happening for me in some capacity, not a victim, and nobody's out to get me, so to speak.
Yes, and this, for instance, just the example that comes to me based on what you're sharing here very powerfully. Let's say someone is in a business relationship where their partner is toxic, for instance, right? These are kind of dynamics that are extremely, extremely hard, right? Or you're in a toxic relationship, same thing, right? Whether that's in business or that's in an intimate relationship, right? When people are in these scenarios, it's very hard. But even there, as Greg was saying, you are, at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you will learn a lot about yourself. And even if it is only that you never want to be with these kinds of people again, and also how you can spot them much, much quicker. So even in these really horrendous situations where everything seems unfair and unjust, and you potentially lose money, you lose time, you lose energy, you lose sleep, you have so much stress going on because of the toxicity that this other person is playing out in a business, in an intimate relationship. Well, at the end of the day, you will be equipped with a learning. And that learning in the long run might give you 10 times the abundance that you experience now. And it might protect you from future things that might be even worse. And just like Greg said, by choosing this attitude, it doesn't mean you love it. It doesn't mean you say, now I love the person. No, but it means you can endure it and get stronger through it and grow through it.
Yeah, this is so good. I could talk to you. Well, I know this is just the beginning of friendship. We're gonna do so many more things together. I'm gonna set that intention. We'll land the plane with this, and then we'll have some fun with some fun ones. I wanted to ask you about your book, Understand Women Better. I'm sure we could do a whole episode just on that. But what are like maybe one or two cool takeaways that the audience can take from just that might be inside the book, and we'll encourage them to obviously grab the full one. That maybe someone can apply immediately to understand women better.
Yes, yes. Um, it's a great question. I'm just feeling into what is the most powerful advice I can give to the audience in a way that's really practical here, without going into too much here and not having enough context. When it comes to understanding women, one of the key things is that for a woman, emotional intimacy is absolutely everything. We can also call this spiritual intimacy, but spiritual intimacy is a bit more vague and abstract. What does it mean? Let's call it emotional intimacy. So what a lot of men have trouble with is that, for instance, a woman might say to them, might express her upset, or has a complaint about something, and they immediately might get very defensive and start saying things such as, but I'm doing X, Y, Z. So for instance, let's say you're in a relationship where the man is the breadwinner, and it does. I'm not saying this is how every relationship has to be. I'm saying that might be a dynamic that for some people feels really, really powerful and empowering. So let's say that is the case. Now that man in that dynamic might now say, but I'm providing, but I am doing all these things, right? But in that moment, when a woman expresses her upset with something, it is almost always about a lack of emotional intimacy. And if you would want to use an even more practical word, connection. She doesn't feel connected to you. This is something for men that's extremely challenging because of our generational trauma, because ancestral wise, what we have inherited is a kind of attitude that is actually disconnected. We have men in the past, and unfortunately still today, men who have to go to war, who have to fight, they have to disconnect from their emotions, from their emotional and inner world, from their heart, in order to cope and survive. It's a survival strategy. This has been passed down from generation to generation, right? And of course, these attitudes, as at least where you and I are living in the world, is not going to help us to thrive, right? So the key thing here is, as men, we need to learn to connect with our heart, with our emotions, with our woman, with our wife. And when we start doing that and understand that, and we start creating this emotional intimacy, then everything starts to change. Really, everything starts to change. And that's, of course, also where you start to experience the sex life you truly want to experience, because sex is a byproduct of emotional intimacy for men and women, but especially for women. And when the emotional intimacy is strong, sex is what naturally happens.
That's unbelievable. I never heard that articulated quite like that, and I couldn't agree more. And I'm guilty. I remember I never talked about this, but a relationship a few years back, probably 15 years ago, if I'm being honest. I remember like the girl wanted just more of me, and I was working really hard. I was building, a career for myself and so forth. And I was so unenlightened that I just thought that I'm providing, I'm doing everything I can. She didn't care. She just wanted to connect.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I could relate to this, and I think that's really good for everybody in a relationship right now. It's not the money, it's not all the things. They want to feel seen and connect.
Yes.
And it's not enough to just, oh, you're taking a couple hours off and spending time with them, because you could be physically there and still not there, right? You have to
Exactly.
be emotionally present.
Exactly.
This is so helpful.
It's really that. You just nailed it there absolutely with what you said at the end. It's we men can be physically present, physically present, but emotionally we're somewhere else. We're stuck in our head or in our mind, right? And of course, women can feel that. Women can always sense when we are lost somewhere in the dunes in our minds, right? And that is why she starts to become tensed. That's why you suddenly experience, you might have dinner with her, you might be in a restaurant, you have your date night, everything is quote unquote perfect, but you're totally stuck in your head thinking about work problems or how I'm going to solve this. And suddenly you notice something feels off, right? So many men can relate to this moment where you are in the relationship with your woman and something just feels a bit off, a bit disconnected, right? And you might even ask, baby, what's going on? And she might say, "Oh, nothing is going on," right? But these are all kind of signs already in that moment that perhaps you are disconnected and she's expressing to you, right? It's almost like she intuitively knows that she has a deeper sense that just can see when you are not present with her. So it's really as beautiful as it is to provide, to protect, even more powerfully, and I would even go as far as saying even more important, is to be emotionally really there with her. Because that's when you are a man who is not just able to hold her, but who can spiritually and energetically hold her. And that is, of course, that's a whole different level. That's a whole different energy. And women, another thing maybe for the men listening that's really important, a woman trusts you based on your ability to show up in challenging moments. So how you show up in moments of challenge defines much more the level of trust she has with you than how you show up in an average mediocre moment, for lack of better language here. So this is really crucial. Who do you become in an argument? Do you start shouting around, start to exercise control, or start to become aggressive? Or do you shut down, run away, and play, perhaps, excuse my language, an immature child who is who is in that moment throwing a tantrum? Or do you take a deep breath, stand with both feet on the ground, speak your truth, set your boundaries, but kind of lead in that situation in a conscious and loving way? These are the situations that don't define you completely, but they certainly define the level of trust she has with you. And this is something interesting. Women remember things differently than men remember things differently. So the female brain, a woman's brain has differences than a man's brain. There are a lot of differences. To say we're the same, no, we need to honor our differences. And this is the last thing I will say to this is for the listener. A woman can remember every fucking, excuse my language, detail of what happened when there was an argument. Whereas we men, we tend to forget about that shit. We tend to shut it into a basement and then it's gone, right? It's a way of avoiding it. She can remember everything. So keep that in mind. In those moments when there is challenge, in those moments where she's leaning on you, when you show up in these moments, boom, that's when she really starts to trust you and she really feels safe with you. And then you're her man, you're her king, you're her warrior. And that energy, I mean, I don't even have to say it. When a man feels that energy, it propels him.
Yeah, 100%. And the last thing I'll say about that is I thought it was really cool that you said, and sex is a byproduct of that connection.
Yes.
The natural progression, yeah.
People think about pickup artists, sex practices, and well, pickup artists is bullshit anyway. That's immature, childish games. But kind of even sacred sexuality practices, these things are all great. Nothing wrong with that. But a woman will not feel sexually open to you if there isn't that level of connection, safety, and trust. So at the end of the day, when men are worried about performance, right, which is a common issue and challenge for men, you're worried about the wrong thing. Even though it's challenging in that moment, I understand that, but you're worried about the wrong thing. If you focus on the emotional component, the rest will naturally follow. If you focus on the sex and physical act, you will probably have the least sex.
It's true. 100%.
Yes.
This is so good. This is so much fun, brother. For our listeners, They're very engaging. It's more than just an audience, it's a community. What's the best way for everybody to get involved with you? What are you most excited about right now? How can we support you?
Yes, thank you for the question. That's great. What I'm most excited about is the continued offerings that I'm creating in regards for men, for women, for couples. There will be other offerings coming as well in regards of really powerful offerings. So how people can find me in the best way, maybe go deep into my work. I have a podcast called Masculine Feminine Dynamics Podcasts. You will find me under my name, and otherwise on Instagram, Lorin Krenn, everywhere. Also on the podcast, you will find me as Lorin Krenn. That's kind of, and also I'm writing a book right now, and my idea is to publish many books. So I'm writing, my second one is finished actually already. It's
Right.
being proofread right now, almost done. It's
Hell
going
yeah.
to be it's going to be a collection of some of my writings about relationships for people to really go deeper in. But then there will come also very specific books about for men and for women in relationship. And by the way, there will be Understand Women Better. There will come a second edition, which will potentially I will add 200 pages more to it with exact practices and everything to make it even bigger.
So love it. Thank you for the unbelievable work that you do. This conversation, about a 7-figure conversation. If people apply and take it straight up, like this is the important stuff that I think people overlook because they just want strategies, tactics. How do I do this? And how come I'm not performing? But it's desire, it's the emotional connections. This was really special. Hang out for one second. I want to connect with you after. Lorin, I want you to know the definition of intimacy, curiosity, and deep wisdom. I could personally guarantee your best is yet to come. Keep on spreading your wings and leaving your mark on this world. So much love and respect for you. Thank you so much for stopping by and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets today.
It has been a true privilege. What an incredible conversation. What an energy. Thank you.
I mean, that was unbelievable. I could talk to you back.
It went like deep dive straight. It was like but it's because also, of course, how you lead it. I mean, it's very, very clear from your energy and how you're going into this that, yeah, it wouldn't have been possible without you kind of bringing that depth and that kind of interviewing style.
Thank you so much, brother, for saying that.